Welcome back, long time no see. Yesterday we put out a video on the first of two cases that were put out by the Supreme Court, two verdicts that came out, one promising, one not so promising, both concerning in some fashion. We'll get into that in just a moment. Before we do that, make sure you click the bell and click the subscribe button. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure that you click that follow and keep up with what's going on. We're going to keep giving you updates on things like this, as well as, of course, Article 5 and any updates that come out for Convention of States. So without any further ado, let's jump in. Okay, so unless you're living under a rock, you know there were two Supreme Court decisions laid out yesterday that were pertaining to the mandate for the vaccinations. And one of them was sort of good news. The other one was bizarre. And we covered one yesterday, so you can go back and check that video out. It was the one on the OSHA mandate. And then now we're going to cover the one on the health workers and CMS, which is the Center for Medicare and Medicare and Medicaid Services. So this one's kind of bizarre because if you listen to the logic in the video, and you really do need to go watch the video we did yesterday to kind of wrap your head around this because of the case we made, and when we went through that opinion, what they used as their logic to shoot it down. And that same logic applies to this, but they somehow, Kavanaugh, decided, you know what? No, it doesn't. I see something else here. I see something else is what he's saying. And it's kind of weird because the dissenting opinion from Barrett, Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch, that dissenting opinion is identical to what they said yesterday. Basically, I'm not going to go into the quotes from it, but I did put the actual opinions, the majority and minority opinion, in the links below. So you can go check that out for yourself if you want to read the whole thing. But basically what the gist is the majority opinion was saying, well, in this case, there's terminology here in their authority from Congress that allows them to do this. But that terminology was no less vague than was the OSHA terminology. And this kind of brings us to why Convention of States is such a big deal, because this is the kind of stuff that we need to put an end to. There needs, and Barrett put this in the dissenting opinion, there needs to be clear verbiage from Congress for something so sweeping as this. You can't have them mandating vaccines all across the country for 1 million or so healthcare workers and then pretend that and do that off the back of an interpretation of a vague concept. It's just not, it doesn't work that way. And the majority opinion tried to bring out this one instance. And if you just read their opinion and you didn't read the dissenting opinion, then you kind of got the wrong impression here where they say, well, there's a statement about being responsible for controlling infectious and contagious diseases and such. And that they took that to mean, okay, the mandate fits in with that authority. But then it's clarified in the dissenting opinion where they basically explain, no, it's not, because that statement only occurs in one place and it's specific to a specific type of facility. So there's a laundry list of different things that qualify as medical facilities that can collect Medicare or Medicaid payments. And this one, I believe it was nursing homes. You can go down and check it out for yourself. I believe it was nursing homes that this language was in there for, but not for any other facility. So, and the point that was made is, why would it specifically be put in there for nursing homes and specifically not put in there for everything else? You can't just grab that and say, well, they meant for that to be everything for everyone else. You need to go by what it says and how it operates. And frankly, Gorsuch's opinion yesterday was really spot on in a sense where what he was saying is, even if OSHA, in the other judgment, even if OSHA would have had the authority to do this under Congress, that would have just been a breach by Congress of a derelict of duty of delegating too much authority to a regulatory agency. And that's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. So what Kavanaugh was looking at, I have no idea. Roberts, whatever with Roberts now. Whatever with this guy. I mean, he's just, somebody's got something over Roberts' head That's the only thing I could think of that makes his bizarre decision making. It's not uncommon for him to fall on a weird side of an issue. Now, for those who think that the courts are all political and this and that, in the end, keep in mind, it's always, whenever there's a break from what that type of logic would predict, it's always the conservative who breaks. It's always the constructionist judge who breaks. Okay, it's never, ever. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg had never, in her 1 million-year career, had never broken the ranks of the Democrat Party, ever, in any judgment she ever made, ever. Okay, never happened. Sotomayor, never happened. Never will either. Never will either. What's his name? Breyer, the other one? Never will happen. Will never happen. Okay? It's always the constructionist, because by nature, it's not that these people are being chosen because they're conservative. They're being chosen because they have a history of following the Constitution and not trying to reinvent it through interpretation and not trying to legislate from the bench. That being said, this decision yesterday just granted a whole crap load of powers now eternally to CMS and the Department of Health and Human Services. A crap load of power they just got. I mean, they with the ability to do this, they could do just about anything. Okay, and this is not something that's constitutional. This is something that the courts just gave them. And this is what bothers me. This is what makes Convention of States such a big deal, because this language needs to be put directly into the Constitution to eliminate all this nonsense. Not one comment in the dissenting opinion or in the majority opinion of either decision mention the Constitution once. Okay, they're not interested. What they look at as the Constitution is that 3,000-page behemoth, 13-pound book that includes the Constitution and all of the Supreme Court justice decisions that have come down over the centuries.
This is the Constitution of the United States of America. You don't have to believe me on that, because it says right here on the spine, Constitution of the United States of America.
All right, that's nonsense. Those decisions, bad ones, good ones, doesn't matter. That's what they go by, okay? They cite these decisions all throughout their opinion. They don't once cite the Constitution, not once. All right? This is why amendments, the ability to make amendments exists. Because when the courts collectively just do this over the course of time, they're the reason that the federal government has been allowed to get as powerful as it's gotten. And that needs to stop. And the only way to do that is by clearly writing into the Constitution what they can and cannot do. Because this regulatory agency thing is a mess. And the idea that they need regulatory agencies because they have so much work to do, they couldn't possibly, do it all, that's nonsense. They don't have too much work to do. They're doing too much work that they're not supposed to be doing. They don't have a place in education. They don't have a place in healthcare. They don't have a place in these fields. Okay? They just don't. And the bottom line is that power was never given to them in the Constitution. They took that power. They bought that power. Shame on the states for selling that power, but the fact of the matter is, now it's time to take it back. Now it's time to take it back so we can stop taking obvious things and praying that a judge decides to go with the Constitution or not. What if we had nine Ginsburgs in there? She'd be like, what the heck? We'd all be lined up against the wall right now.
This won't hurt a bit, son.
We'd all be lined up against the wall, and I'd be standing there with probes. but in the end, that's the point, right? This is why we got to make this happen. There have been great strides for Article 5 so far this year. The year started out phenomenal. Massachusetts had a hearing where the citizens got to go in and petition one by one in a Zoom call for Article 5. Nebraska passed its first reading, so there are 2 more readings in Nebraska. And it's the same group, so there's only one chamber. So once it gets through there, we should be good to go. I think it's next week. I think it's early next week they do the second reading. But the good thing is when you watch the whole thing, as I do, you get that feeling that like they're getting it now. Like they're starting to look up this runaway convention nonsense and realize how ridiculous it is, and realize how it doesn't really cut it. that the idea that this could happen is not going to happen, that the ratification process is not an easy one, and it's not an easy one for good reason. There's no way 38 states would overturn the Bill of Rights or do any crazy stuff like that. So the people are starting to get it. They're starting to get it, and we can get this thing done, you know, with the good help and the leadership of Convention of States Action. You know, we can get this thing done. So if you haven't signed the petition, you can do that at our website. There's a link that goes directly to conventionofstates.com's registration or the petition signing. And then there's also some educational videos on there, some blogs, you know, just to help get you educated if you're new to it. And of course, on the Convention of States website as well, there's also a ton of resources and information. All right. So to our healthcare workers, you know, we're in this with you. I mean, Jack and I are both on the fence with this OSHA side of it, and we know. We know what you're going through. Hang in there. You know, we've still got the fight on the religious exemption piece because, you know, there's just no... Title VII is Title VII. So we'll see. You know, hopefully with the constructionist judges, we'll be able to get some protection, some religious freedom. But, you know, that is our hope right now. That's where the focus should be. We'll pray for you. We're out.
And like that,